What's good, interweb? This is your boy Q, the Geek, digging through the gaming archives again today, and we're going to talk about quite possibly the best game ever made. So here's 10 things you may or you may not know about Final Fantasy VII. I really shouldn't need to say this because the game is just about 20 years old, and if you haven't heard about or even played this masterpiece yet, shame on you. This list does contain spoilers, so beware. Number 1, the game that almost never was. The game we have today almost never was. The original concept of Final Fantasy VII was to be about a detective named Joe, solving cases in a near future New York City. But after the passing of the game's producer, Hironobu Shugagachi, the game took a whole other concept. The idea wasn't lost though. This concept would eventually become what we know today as Parasite Eve. Number 2, let's get it on. At the end of Disc 2, right before you enter the North Crater to confront Sephiroth, there was a scene, a little romantic scene, of Cloud and Tifa underneath Cid's Highwind, and that was supposed to be the two hooking up before the final battle, but was felt that it would be a little too mature for the audience. I'm curious to see if they're going to add this scene to the new remake coming soon. Number 3. Gold Saucer Boo. During one of the game's most iconic scenes, you have the option to take either Aeris, Tifa, Yuffie, or Barret on a date at Gold Saucer. By default, the date is intended for Aeris and Cloud, but depending on how often you use certain characters in your party and what options you choose in multiple choice questions will gain more affinity with Cloud, allowing you to see each character's feelings about the spiky-haired hero. One of my favorite dates is when he takes Barret on the Ferris wheel. Number 4. Final Fantasy VII was made for Nintendo 64. During the early 1990s, Nintendo and Squaresoft's relationship had become, let's say, strained to say the least. With Nintendo opting to continue their next generation console with cartridges and still having most games rated G and PG, Squaresoft opted to move to Sony, which allowed them to fully Number 4. Final Fantasy VII was almost an N64 game. During the early mid-1990s, Nintendo and Squaresoft relationship had become, let's say, a little strained. With Nintendo opting to continue their next home console with cartridges and rated G and PG titles, Squaresoft opted to move to Sony, which allowed them to better convey their games more like they envisioned. Number 5. Black character? As crazy as it sounds, Barret was the first black central character in a Japanese game. Even though he still had more than a few stereotypical things about him. He didn't die though. The game developers figured killing Barret would be too predictable and too Hollywood. Number 6. Jimi Hendrix influenced One Wing Angel. Feeling they needed a little more edge to the otherwise soft and toned musical score, Sephiroth's theme, One Wing Angel, was inspired by Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze. Magnets? Number 7. Magnets? One of the most speculated things about the game is how in the hell does the Buster Blade stay connected to Cloud's back? Well, the short answer is magnets, and magnets, as can be seen on one of the original character mock-up designs. Number 8. Tifa was not originally in the game. During the early game development, there were only 3 central characters: Cloud Strife, Aeris Guadenberg, and Barret Wallace. After it was decided that Aeris would be the one to die, character developer Tetsuro Naruma suggested that another heroine come into play to vie for Cloud's attention and fill in the void after Aeris' untimely death at the hands of Sephiroth. Number 9. Aeris is alive. Well, Aeris can be resurrected if you cheat. Back in the day, there was a little device called Game Shark, basically like a pack and later a disc that you can connect to the back of your PlayStation, which allowed you to hack certain aspects of the game. After Aeris' death, You can bring her back to fight in battles with you. However, she can no longer be seen in towns or be seen behind you on number 10. Xeno Fantasy? That's right. Xenogears was the original concept, well, one of the original concepts for Final Fantasy VII, but it was deemed to be too dark and too complicated to be a Final Fantasy game, and was later made into its own separate project, Xenogears. And that wraps it up for the top 10 things you may or may not know about Final Fantasy. If I missed anything, or you think I'm wrong about anything, please drop me a line or two in the comment section below. This has been your boy Q, your friendly neighborhood Negro. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe to stay up on all things geek. Peace.